What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm finishing up the last three positions on DraftKings, going over wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses for Week 4's main slate. This doesn't include Sunday night and the Sunday morning game, so let's get into it. Wide receivers, so two wide receivers over 9,000. I have both of them as tournament plays right now. Justin Jefferson against Carolina, I think overall it's a really good matchup for him. The only thing is it's hard to pay up for Justin Jefferson. And if you're paying up for Justin Jefferson, it doesn't make sense to kind of not get Kirk in your lineup as well. But also I think Minnesota has a really good opportunity and a good run game, which you really haven't been able to do so far this season. They focus pretty heavy on the pass, and Carolina's defense is not good in my opinion. They have some good pieces there, but overall, I don't think it's that good. It's just justifying trying to pay up 9,600 and still find some value in other places. I'd rather pay down just a little bit at wide receiver, but I don't think it's bad. I think getting exposure in tournaments good. Same thing for Tyreek Hill. Honestly, you could play Tyreek Hill in cash, and I wouldn't consider it bad. It's just the pricing of paying Tyreek Hill in 9,200 in this matchup. He's a good run back piece, but you have to understand, if you're playing Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, that's 16 there. You get Tyreek Hill, that's 25. That's half your salary, more than half your salary on three players. So you need those guys to have really big games, and if that game flops, your lineup flops. So you're spending a lot of salary there. But if you can afford it, go for it, right? CMC's that price too, so I'm okay with it. Stephon Diggs is my first cash play, right? 8,100. High total. Miami plays a lot of zone. Diggs excels in zone, so having the stack of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs here, I think is a good play overall. Miami allowing 37.3 DraftKings points to wide receivers, so not the greatest, but not the worst either, especially for the volume that Stephon Diggs gets. If Miami's able to do what they did against Denver, not in the aspect of 70 points, but to move the ball pretty well against Buffalo's defense, look for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs to be that bounce back as well. Devontae Adams I have as a cash, but it might fall out of cash. Waiting on to see who's the quarterback for Vegas. If it's Garoppolo, he falls under cash. If it's Hoyer, it's risky. Playing Adams in cash, I think is a good tournament play, but I think he falls out of cash in that aspect. Keenan Allen at 7,900, I think is the safest pay up at wide receiver in cash. At 7,900, the wide receiver one on DraftKings points right now. Watching the Austin Eckler news, if he's out, that just helps Keenan Allen that much more. Vegas' secondary is bad. The red zone work he gets is just crazy. So Keenan Allen could be due for another really good game. Vegas, I think, has a very good opportunity to bounce back regardless of who the quarterback is. I think it's a good matchup for Josh Jacobs and Adams and Jacoby Myers. So. But Keenan Allen, 7,900, yes. Jamar Chase, $7,800, $100 cheaper. Yes, these are my two that I like the most so far for a high pay up. Jamar Chase gets a great matchup against Tennessee, and Tennessee's run defense is good, which means the Bengals are going to have to pass the ball in order to get a lot of their yardage. I see this being Chase and Burrow's best game yet. But we'll see what that looks like. Tennessee always plays a tough game, especially at home. But with how bad their secondary is, I could see Jamar Chase easily tear down that defense even more than they've already been torn down so far this season. CeeDee Lamb, 7,500 against Dallas. I have as or against New England. I have as a tournament play. New England runs a lot of man. I think they're top 5 in running man coverage. CeeDee Lamb excels in man coverage. He's a great route runner. Really snags the ball in man coverage. If you watch it, zone, he just gets open, just finds the open zone. But man, plays it really well. I won't see a lot of Gonzalez, who is New England's best corner. so far this year, so he won't see a lot of them. So that's why I think he's a good tournament play. But obviously, it is New England's defense, and Belichick knows how to shut wide receiver ones down sometimes. So that's something to be concerning about. But I think he's a really good tournament play. Chris Olave 7,100. It's good matchup. The only thing of why he's kind of in tournament, not cash, is we don't know who the quarterback is going to be, and we don't know what the offense is going to look like with Kamara back as the RB1. I would assume they just put him right back in there. But as you can see, Tampa Bay allowing 42.2 fantasy points a game to wide receivers, so that benefits someone like Olave in both zone and man. I think it benefits him quite a bit. T. Higgins, good tournament play, right? If you want to get a stack, T. Higgins actually plays man better than Jamar Chase. Plus, you're saving $1,000 paying down to him. I think it's a great matchup for both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in this. I just like the Jamar Chase, especially in the red zone work. But T. Higgins, I won't argue if you want to play T. Higgins over Jamar Chase. I won't. Puka Nacua at 6,700. Another great matchup for him. Plays great against his zone, which Indy does quite a bit. And his target percentage is just off the charts in zone. So Puka Nacua, if you're running a Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman stack, I know that's kind of not the greatest stack, but Zach Moss is another guy there. Or if you're stacking him with Stafford, I don't mind it. Puka Nacua at 6,700, I think is a very good cash play. Just mention Michael Pittman. Been one of the more consistent, good wide receivers so far this year. The Rams run a lot of zone. Michael Pittman's excelled against zone so far. The difference in man and zone really isn't that high if you go and look at the Rams numbers. It's not crazy, but I think he's a good stacking option for the volume he's got with both Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson. Game one, he got the same volume pretty much as he's gotten all three games. So Michael Pittman, 6,500, I think is a good stacking option. Brandon Ayuk, we're watching the injury status of Debo, of Ayuk, of Juwan Jennings to see who's playing for that wide receiver. I think if both Debo and Juwan Jennings are both out, he becomes a really good play against Arizona at 6,200. Gabe Davis is a paydown if you like a Tua and Tyreek stack. I think Gabe Davis is a good run back piece at 5,900. Plays very good against zone, and that's what Miami runs quite a bit. DeAndre Hopkins, 5,800, just because of the pricing and who DeAndre Hopkins is. Cincinnati has some good corners, some good safety replacements from the guys they lost. But with Treylon Burks out, that means more opportunities for DeAndre Hopkins. Hopefully this is the game he excels at, but we'll have to see if Cincy's offense can do what I think they should and score quite a bit. Look for someone like DeAndre Hopkins to be a good run back piece. If you want a Burrow, Chase, Burrow, Higgins stack, run DeAndre Hopkins. Pretty cheap in my opinion. Jordan Addison, I think, is a good stacking option. Like I said, my only thing against Minnesota wide receivers is how good I think Minnesota is going to be able to run the ball, and that hurts the run game. Bryce Young in that offense is a total different beast than Andy Dalton in that offense. The Bryce Young is not there yet. Like, he'll get there. I think he'll get there. It's clear. In my opinion, he'll get there. The offensive line's got to get better. Some more experience with the wide receivers and just learning the NFL. But that offense is going to run smoother with Dalton in there versus Young. So that worries me. But I think Jordan Addison's a good Kirk stack option there as well. DJ Moore, kind of the same thing. A good stack option with Justin Fields. Clearly the number one wide receiver as far as targets and all that. It's a good matchup for him against this Denver secondary. He's not going to see a lot of Patrick Surtain, which is good. Denver's defense and Chicago's defense both terrible, but it's all about more getting targets. I think he'll exceed expectations when he gets those targets. He's just got to get them. Zay Flowers, 5,600. I think with Odell out, Bateman out, playing one of the best defenses in the league. I'd say best defense. But with two other starting wide receivers out, some injuries all over Baltimore, It's not good. That's why I clearly don't have him as a cash, but I mean, one of the more targeted wide receivers in the league so far, especially in the red zone, which is huge if they get down there. I think his price for what he's done so far this year is still mispriced. So Zay Flowers is a good tournament play. I'm not playing him in cash. Have him nowhere near cash right now. Tutu Atwell is a good stacking option as well if you want to do a Stafford Tutu or a good run back piece for if you're playing Indy side. So I think he's a good play, especially if you can't afford Puka. I think he's a good pay down. Jacoby Myers, another one stacking option if Garoppolo's in. Jacoby Myers, I mean, you see the 22.3 fantasy points a game. Granted, missed a game, but going against a Chargers secondary who has been getting torched so far this season. Hopefully Garoppolo's in. It's just it's uncertain with who the quarterback is. Even if Garoppolo's in, he's still dealing with the concussion, so you don't know what that looks like. George Pickens. We start to get to the pay down cash plays. George Pickens at 54. It's clearly number one wide receiver in that offense with Deontay Johnson out. He's very cheap for some of the numbers he's put up with some rougher matchups. Houston has a lot of injuries offensively. I think Pittsburgh's going to get the ball a lot and a lot of opportunities for that offense. And he's got a very good matchup. So George Pickens at 5,400 I like. It's just difficult if you're playing Fairmouth to get George Pickens. But if you're not playing Fairmouth, I think having George Pickens is good, especially for his price. Cortland Sutton, 5,300. A lot of love to Jerry Jeudy. I'm a big Jerry Jeudy fan myself. But at 5,300, I mean, you're saving 1,300 from paying down from Jerry Jeudy, and he's gotten 18 targets in the last 2 weeks. Their number one red zone target, I believe, as well. So, I mean, Bears secondary is torched right now. Obviously, I think Denver can run the ball really good with a mix of Javonte and Samaje Perine. So, I still think Denver's going to throw the ball quite a bit and be efficient doing it. And Cortland Sutton is a good price at 5,300, especially in cash. He's a good pay down in cash. In order to afford your Jamar Chase, your Keenan Allen, even your Puka with how expensive running backs and quarterbacks are. I think he's a good price there. Nico Collins, I have as a tournament play. I mean, you could see his points 16.6 a game going against a Pittsburgh secondary that gives up 48.2 to wide receivers. I just prefer Tank Dell in this matchup, but I think he's okay to play. It's also risky with Houston's offensive line is just shredded. It's pretty bad of how many offensive linemen they're down. So going against a very good defensive line and defense in general, for the most part, their secondary, it's you know. But I'd rather pay down 500 for Tank Dell and get the numbers that he's produced than Nico Collins at 5,100. Marquise Brown 5,000 excels in man and zone coverage. Arizona or San Fran's kind of split. I still think it's a bad matchup regardless, but for what he's done for his price at 5,000, I think he's worthy of getting some tournament exposure for sure. And then we go down to Elijah Moore at 4,700. I mentioned the amount of Baltimore injuries. Humphrey, 2 outside linebackers. The wide receivers are injured. Offensive line got healthy. Running back got healthy, but there's still injuries. But Baltimore runs a lot of man coverage, and Elijah Moore has been the more consistent wide receiver of him and Amari Cooper against man coverage. So had his first good game last week, so look for him to continue that. 4,700 I'd definitely get exposure to in tournaments. 4,600 Tank Dell mentioned, but 12 for 217 and 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games is crazy. He's the best wide receiver against man coverage, which Pittsburgh runs a decent amount more of man coverage than zone coverage. And for what he's done, I honestly think he's mispriced. He should be in the low 5 to mid 5K range at this point. Adam Thielen, 4,500. I don't love him. I'd pay $100 more for Tank Dell or pay down for Josh Palmer here. You don't know what you're going to get out of Bryce Young. Obviously, Andy Dalton run that offense a little more efficiently, especially in the pass game. It's just a lot of question marks with Bryce Young. Obviously, it's a revenge game for Adam Thielen if you're into that. So count that. And Jonathan Mingo is questionable. the number 2 wide receiver, I think, so far for that Carolina offense. So that also helps Adam Thielen out. But playing against a secondary that gives up 56.7 fantasy points a game to wide receivers is nice. So Adam Thielen, I think, is a good cash play. Out of the 3, I'd probably put him 3rd. But it's a good matchup. His price is good. He's a good pay down to allow you to pay up at quarterback, running back, or other wide receivers. So I think it's a good play there. Josh Palmer, 4K, obviously. Good price for his target share, right, with Mike Williams being out. We've seen injuries to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams last year. Josh Palmer, his volume went up. He was one of those guys where the volume went up. And even if Austin Eckler is out, that's that much better for Josh Palmer. So Joshua Palmer, 4,000. I think if you need a guy to definitely pay down to, he's your guy. Going to have some high ownership, so definitely not the greatest per price, but his opportunities are going to be there. Marvin Mims, I have as a value. I think is a very good value. 5 for 186 and a touchdown in the last 2 games. Just getting some long receptions. And he's Denver's best player against zone. The only issue with Mims and why I have him as a value, not a cash or tournament, is his snap shares. With Ben Johnson and Lil Jordan Humphrey out-snapping him, right? And Jerry Jeudy's healthy now, so that's my worry for Marvin Mims. I wish he was a wide receiver 3. I think he can excel that much more, but there's a lot of mouths to feed over him at this point. I think he'll get there by the end of the season, but as of right now, he's a value for me at 3,900 against that Bears really banged up secondary. Quentin Johnson at 3,700 is another value piece for me as well. We haven't really got to see him that much. I think the Chargers have been slowly getting him in and not trying to put him in a bad spot like JSN has basically been in so far. But with Mike Williams being out, it gives opportunities for Quentin Johnston. So look for him. I'd still play Palmer over Quentin Johnston in cash. I think Quentin Johnston's probably a better tournament play than I would recommend playing in cash. But the matchup does favor Quentin Johnston as well. Josh Downs, 3,500. Number 2 target behind Pittman. You could say the tight end mix combo is there as well, but at 3,500 for the volume he's gotten with Minshew, we'll see what that looks like with Richardson. But I think for his price at 3,500, it's a good price. 3,300, Calvin Austin the third against Houston. Allen Robinson, I guess, kind of banged up. It's the same thing. I like Pickens. I like Fairmouth. If you need a really cheap wide receiver, though, he's 3,300. Definitely getting some targets. He just needs more volume to obviously pay off for what his talent can be. So he's probably the cheapest guy that I have down here at 3,300 to play. So we'll go to defense now, right? TJ Hawkinson, a tournament play. I think it's a really good matchup. Like I said, with Jefferson and Addison, I like the run game in Minnesota. I think there's a lot of mouths to feed, and they're going to move the ball pretty good against Carolina. But I don't know if the volume is going to be there enough for Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson to go with Matson and possibly Cam Akers. So I'd rather pay down at tight end this week. Even George Kittle, 1,400, you're saving. He has the best PFF tight end advantage going against Arizona. Wide receiver injuries, like I mentioned, Debo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, and they have the highest team total. So getting a Kittle Purdy stack, even running with CMC, I mean, there's a lot of potential with those 3. Brock Purdy, pretty much I'd say a 18 to 20 point quarterback. CMC getting somewhere around another 20, and then George Kittle, you're hoping for 10 to 15 point game out of him. So he's got to pay off at 5,100 against a bad Arizona defense. And then Gerald Everett, 3,600 is a tournament play for me. Same thing with Mike Williams out. You saw Gerald Everett get some volume. Obviously, Donald Parham is getting the red zone work for the Chargers. But if Eckler is out with Mike Williams, I think you go Keenan Allen 1, probably Josh Palmer 2, and then Gerald Everett 3. But you could switch Palmer and Everett 2 and 3, and then Quentin Johnston 4 as far as where I see those targets going. So for 3,600 in that matchup, I think it's a good opportunity for him. not the greatest PFF, but he does have a positive PFF tight end advantage. Pat Freiermuth, I think, is the cash tight end that you're paying for at 3,400 against the Houston defense, right? 13.1 points a game to tight end so far. I think it's a good game script for Freiermuth. I think how close the game is, injuries on Houston's side, right? Pittsburgh getting the ball a little more. I like him, especially for his price, and he's got the third best PFF tight end advantage. So he's pretty much the biggest cash play right now. Dawson Knox I have as a really good tournament play, 3,100. Leads team in the red zone targets. Miami's allowed 2 touchdowns already this year to tight ends, and with the high total, high team implied total, Dawson Knox at 31 I think could be a good tournament play. And then Chig I have as my other cash play at 3,100. A really good pay down if you're looking for some difference in ownership, right, of paying off of Pat Freiermuth, of a guy that can have that good of a game. It's definitely Chig in this one, right? No Treylon Burks. Great matchup against Cincy, giving up 14.8 points to tight ends. They really don't get much more tight ends in play, so I think it's a really good play. I like Tanner Hudson a little bit. I don't think I can really get to him. I think for the value of paying 2,500, like, he's there, but I don't know if I'd commit to it. And lastly, guys, defenses. I only have 3. Steelers against Houston. Like I said, the Houston offensive line is just so banged up. Steelers could get some sacks. I just never really recommend paying up for defenses. Colts against the Rams, with how many times Matt Stafford turns the ball over. But Colts defense has been playing really good, gotten some sacks, get some pressure. So 2,900, that's the other one. And then I think everyone sees the Browns defense as the cash play this week. Could have backfired easily. It could easily backfire. It's Lamar Jackson. He plays really good as an underdog. But you just have to play the defenses that has played so well so far this season. And with 2 wide receiver injuries, I mean, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, even the running back situation of Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, they're not great running backs. So Browns defense, I think, is the defense to go. If you're looking at another defense, I'd say you go down to Washington, and I don't recommend doing that. It's just their defensive line is good, but Philly's got one of, if not the best offensive line. So that's pretty much it as far as that. So hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys want the smash plays for Sunday, I pretty much finish at Saturday night, Sunday morning, and upload that for subscribers. So if you guys are interested in that, click the link in the description. I'll take you to our Discord, and you can feel free to message me on any questions and what you get for subscribing. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.